noticed, or maybe not noticed yesterday, a massive tech outage. Apple Music, Delta Airlines had a ground halt at JFK, Lyft, Outlook, Venmo, even Xbox, like 50 other companies, all went down or had serious disruptions in their service, and it cost the U.S. economy an estimated hundreds of billions of dollars. But more importantly, crypto interfaces like Coinbase and a few others had limited access service. Why? Because a service called Amazon Web Services was interrupted. Look, Jeff Bezos is not worth hundreds of billions of dollars because he sells batteries to John Q. Public on the internet. He's loaded because Amazon Web Services hosts as much as 40% of the global internet traffic. 53% of the top 10,000 most visited websites in the world are hosted by Amazon or their affiliates that are owned by it. Now think about this. This suspiciously happened at the Northern Virginia server location, which has significant government traffic, just slightly after Trump announced a 100% tariff on China, and the day after announcing U.S. independence of mining our own rare earth minerals, of which China currently provides almost 80% globally. I mean, what are the odds, right? Now, AWS is not admitting any type of hack that would completely compromise their global reliability on their platform. So they are saying, okay, that one tiny line of code severed internet communication between the customer and the AWS service. That was the cause. Now, think of the internet, your data, money, services, traffic, like a zipper. Yesterday's blackout was caused by one tooth on a zipper of your entire jacket that was just knocked out of place. And it grounded flights, froze people's money, couldn't get into your email, chat programs were down from a single tooth on a zipper.
I think the larger issues, and this only happened, as you know, for a couple of hours, thank goodness. The larger issue is if this were to take place, for a day or a week, we'd have a much bigger problem. So I think there's a big question about resiliency and just how important these cloud providers have become. They are almost like utilities, and then there's a question of whether they are too big to fail.
This is what I have been warning people about. How technology is so vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. This was one tooth on an entire zipper of your entire jacket. What if it was 5 or 10 teeth? See, here's the issue. Every major company spends huge amounts of money on cybersecurity, antivirus, the latest and greatest software to accomplish whatever they do. But none of that matters if you cut the phone line, which is proverbially, digitally, what happened yesterday. If you can't access your data in the place that it's stored, like if the road to the storage facility is washed out by a river and you can't get to it, it doesn't matter what kind of lock you have on your storage facility, you can't use it. The whole advancement from paper records to the cloud service, or what AWS is and was, if your filing cabinet in your business caught on fire, you lost all your paper records. You're out of luck. But with the cloud, you were supposed to be able to access your stuff from a remote location. Yesterday, connection to your location was compromised. Enter blockchain technology. Stay with me. You probably already use this. You probably don't even know about it. Essentially, blockchain technology is reliability through a plurality and redundancy. Let me explain this to you, okay? So your data in this specific case will use money because, let's be honest, since leaving the gold standard, the money you leave in the bank is just a number on a balance sheet. The bank doesn't even keep your cash in the bank anymore. Let's say you have $100,000 at Bank X, all right? And Bank X loses a tooth on that zipper. But unlike yesterday, what if they never get it back? Your $100,000 is gone forever. There's no record of it. The bank's digital filing cabinet essentially burned down. But blockchain has data everywhere. It exists everywhere. So what is it? Imagine my camera guy, Daryl, over there. Wave. Say hi, Daryl. All right, so he buys me lunch because he's a great guy. And I want to send him $10 for that sandwich, even though he won't take it. In a traditional system, it moves the money from my account to his account. And the bank records the transaction in one place. In a blockchain world, I send the money to Daryl. And a bazillion people or entities or programs or whatever on the internet rush to record that transaction. Think of it as each one is an individual Post-it note right here. And the first one to do it gets a reward. In this case, a very, 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 very slim profit of whatever the transaction was. Now, once it's recorded, it populates the same data on every one of those bazillion Post-it notes, meaning the record of me paying Daryl doesn't only exist at that one bank, it literally exists everywhere. Meaning the $10 that I paid Daryl is still recorded on all the other Post-it notes if that one goes away, all the computers and all that, and your account balance is safe. Sounds great, right? So why is this not universally implemented? Well, because one, most of the experts don't understand it. And two, it costs money to move that service from a traditional cloud base that stores your bank balance in a single location or server form, like most do. Blockchain is decentralized, it's transparent, it's accountable, which leads me to why the government hates this. Because blockchain is the bank. In blockchain world, aka all those Post-it notes I just showed you, your money is not held by Bank X that is super regulated and can be reached into by the federal government anymore. And it might not be held in dollars. And because blockchain-based data, in this case, your bank balance, exists anywhere and everywhere, stay with me, because that blockchain data exists in different countries that might operate on different currencies, blockchain requires a universal value for the transaction. Why do it on the US dollar when you can make your own currency that isn't regulated, not actually worth anything, yet simultaneously worth everything because it's backed by the value of your data on that blockchain technology? Enter cryptocurrencies. It's like a stock, but far less regulated, not tied to traditional values, structures, and market caps, more secure, but super volatile. Independent of any government, no physical location, it's used as a reward or a currency that cannot be compromised by any known technology or hackers today. Case in point, people who lost their hard drive or their 16-word passcode to their Bitcoin account, it's lost forever. Almost $500 billion of lost Bitcoin is floating around on the blockchain. It didn't go away, it's still there, just waiting to be claimed, yet nobody has been able to hack that. $500 billion is a pretty big incentive to hack something and nobody's been able to do it? Sounds secure to me. Now sure, like digital banks like Coinbase had a problem yesterday, but your crypto was still safe. It was always there. Coinbase or their counterparts actually hold your assets in cold storage, offline hard drives, as well as on the blockchain. And it doesn't lend it out like traditional banks, so it's physically there, or as physical as digital assets can be. Here's where it gets interesting, because technology always outpaces legislation because the government is slow, inefficient, and mostly run by morons. Could crypto and a technologically savvy president get ahead of the game for the benefit of the country? Now consider this. If the U.S. Treasury in 2009 had invested $348 into Bitcoin, that today would be $37.8 trillion, our national debt. $348 would have purchased 1.7% of the total supply of Bitcoin at the time, and today would wipe our balance sheet clean. Imagine they've done that for Social Security too. Because crypto is worth what people think it's worth, simply because people are buying it, and like a Prada bag that costs $50 to make and sells for $5,000, supply and demand. Could the government theoretically, I don't know, take 1/5 of our annual tax revenue, which is about $1 trillion, and put it into an emerging cryptocurrency like, I don't know, XRP, currently trading around $2.50? That would explode the value of that coin. Right now, the total market cap of XRP is $144 billion in total circulation. This would multiply its value by a factor of 8, essentially returning the government $8 trillion overnight. Want to get aggressive, they could dump it, crash the market, buy it right back, do it all over again. Pay off the national debt by Saturday. You see, the government can't control crypto like it controls banks and the bogus Federal Reserve, printing money out of thin air. Ronald Reagan famously said, that the government operates very simply. If it moves, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. If you can't do either, ban it. He didn't know about blockchain. Reagan didn't know about the fourth option. Become what you seek to control. The government's only option to actually have any seat at the table in any type of control over crypto is to participate in it. If you own it, that's great for you. It's going to be worth a ton. After all, we can just print money, buy crypto with it. That's why crypto's here to stay. It's the answer to make sure that even if we do lose a tooth on the zipper again, it doesn't matter. But more importantly, the value of that seamless zipper could be the trick to wipe out the country's national debt. Print money, devalue the dollar, explode crypto investments, sell it, wipe out the national debt, replenish the national gold reserves, fund Social Security, rapid deflation, and reset the system to before the Federal Reserve ever left the gold standard. James Fishback, the CEO of Arzora and also a potential guy who might sit on the Fed one day. All right, let's talk about this, James. This could be huge.
It could be huge indeed.
So what is your take on crypto, Trump getting into it, blockchain? Is this something that's feasible? Because every other president, I feel, is 10 years behind the investment structure. You're on the front edge of it.
Well, I think President Trump put it best when he said that Bitcoin equals freedom. Bitcoin can't be hacked in the most literal sense, the way the dollar can. I don't mean some Nigerian scammer telling you that he's your long-lost cousin who's found an inheritance,
yeah.
right? I actually mean hacked by the hacks who work at the Federal Reserve. People like Jerome Powell, who all they do is complain, print money when Joe Biden is in there, and then refuse to lower rates the second a man named Donald J. Trump wins the election by a landslide. The dollar can be hacked by hacks in Washington, D.C., but Bitcoin cannot be hacked. Here's what I mean by that. There are 21 million Bitcoin that can ever exist mathematically. Not a Bitcoin more, not a Bitcoin less.
Digital gold.
Exactly right. But unlike the dollar, where you can print more of it, the Bitcoin supply is set into perpetuity. In fact, Carl, the last Bitcoin will be mined in the year 2140. So think about what happens. Demand keeps going up and up and up because of what President Trump has done to liberalize cryptocurrency, to get the boot from the SEC of Joe Biden off of the backs of every single person who was investing in this revolution for the past 5-6 years. And actually create something of value, because the dollar has no real value.
Right.
Bitcoin, by virtue of it having a fixed amount, by virtue of it not being able to be hacked in the traditional computer technological sense, but not to be able to be hacked by the policymakers who will find an excuse to print $5 trillion, send half of it to Ukraine. He does a little dance over there with Zelensky.
Yeah.
That is not how we do this anymore. And so I think you summed it up well. The blockchain is transparent and accountable. The exact opposite of the government. And so if you could impose that regime on the regime, you could bring real freedom to the American people once and for all.
But the risk here is, like I just said in the end, the fourth option under Reagan, participate in it.
Right.
Could the government throw so much money at this? I mean, look, I'm a crypto bro. I'm big into crypto. I think if the government wanted to go in on it, I would be a multimillionaire overnight. However, does that risk the entire integrity of the system if the government throws so much money at it that it inflates it artificially?
I think so. And, you know, all of these cryptocurrencies are not created the same. So you've got things like XRP, which don't have the same exact fixed supply paradigm as Bitcoin. The reality is having Scott Bessent day trade cryptocurrencies and pump and dump them is not a long-term viable option.
Right.
What is a long-term viable option is exactly what President Trump has done. Create a strategic Bitcoin reserve that with time will increase in value and allow us to actually make good on the promises of Social Security. People call Social Security an entitlement.
Yeah.
It's not an entitlement.
pay
You paid into it. Hardworking people at home right now, for the last 20, 30, 40 years, the government took money from you every single month. Don't ever let a Republican or a Democrat call it an entitlement. You paid into the system. You deserve to get your money back with a return. That is the contract that was set up. And so if Bitcoin can be a part of making good on that contract that the government needs to make good on, so be it.
And in 2009, if they invested what I pay into Social Security, I'd be a billionaire by that. And they didn't do that. They wasted it on stupid stuff. I want to bring in founder and CEO of Custodia Bank, Caitlin Long, who also actually started the world's first crypto-backed bank in the conversation. All right, this is so fascinating to me. You and I had this conversation years ago, and I was like, what the hell is crypto? And here we are talking potentially with the next Federal Reserve governor, yourself. Is this something that could be massively huge in the coming years?
Oh, of course. And it already is. And as you know full well, James, it's nice to meet you. Custodia is the one that sued the Federal Reserve because they blocked us from getting in. So, yeah, here we go. And that lawsuit is ongoing.
Yeah.
Caitlin, you had to fight with them because you were threatening their monopoly. They want a monopoly on the dollar. They want to be able to inflate it anytime they want. When a Democrat is in there, they'll print, cut rates. The second a conservative like Donald J. Trump goes in there, they want to sabotage the entire system because they want to hurt him. And so what you did, you should be commended for. It is courageous. It is patriotic. You are threatening the monopoly of the Federal Reserve, the stranglehold they've had on working people across this country.
So, Caitlin, but in this whole thing, you know, the idea of everybody in every part of the world being able to trade on a universal currency like crypto, your bank would facilitate something like that. How is it not caught on to do this in larger scale, especially between nations? Like, let's say we give foreign aid to someone. We want to pay Germany $50 billion. Why not do it in crypto?
Well, remember that President Trump is a big supporter of the U.S. dollar, and so is Scott Bessent, right? So they're not trying to tear down the U.S. dollar system and replace it with a Bitcoin-based system. I know some of the hardcore Bitcoin friends of ours would like to do that. I don't want to live in that world because I think the transition would be unstable. So what they're trying to do is to extend the dollar's run as world reserve currency using blockchain technology in things like stablecoins, not central bank digital currencies, but private versions. Exactly. But
explain the difference between those, because that's very important.
Yes, a dollar that's issued on a blockchain where you don't have to keep it at your bank and you can take it into self-custody. That's the digital equivalent of stashing cash in your mattress. We have the ability to do that now. Yeah. And that's a dollar-based cryptocurrency, and it's I think an intermediate step. I think that stable coins are an intermediate step that get folks comfortable with the infrastructure, wallet, having to self-custody your assets. You were absolutely right, Carl. These assets are money, just like gold coins, that we can have. Yeah. And we don't have to keep them in a bank. And we have actual property rights in our money for the first time since Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971.
But James, in this whole world, I mean, presumably one day, if you do sit on the Fed, is it just antiquated old people that don't know things that are so resistant to this, or is it because of the power structure, or is it both?
It's not antiquated old things at all, old people. I think if we had the average retiree in America, in my home state of Florida, running monetary policy, we would not have gotten into the mess that we've gotten into. Sound money does not have a specific focus. What we need to do is actually be honest about where we are. $37 trillion in debt, $110,000 of debt per taxpayer. We have to, one, bring down the debt, but we also have to bring up growth as well. The debt to GDP ratio can be brought down not just by bringing down the national debt, but by actually growing ourselves out of this mess. Right. And a big part of that is going to be the cryptocurrency revolution.
It's crazy. Well, look, folks, go back and watch this again, because there's a lot of information here. James Fishback, Caitlin Long, pleasure to be with both of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, the Supreme Court agreeing to review a law that bars drug users